Later, I'm going to ask about Summit, but right now, let's talk more about kind of the practical. Um, and not everybody has to answer, but just kind of daily, weekly level, what sorts of structures, practices, are helping you out?
One of the things that helped me out was our weekly writing sessions that we did over the summer, where it was self-guided and the we all sort of set different schedule links of like, oh, I'm available this time, I'm available this time. And we all sort of coordinated, oh, well, these windows are open that we can have writing sessions and you can join every week and write. And that's been helpful for keeping me on track because otherwise I would just procrastinate. So having those sessions, I felt really helped give me a container of like, okay, you have to write this morning because you have to meet with Martha and Rashida, who are also writing right now. So
Yeah, and I think building off of that, I think most people, and for the most part, writing is very solitary, right? You're going into your mind on a computer, in a notebook, bringing out the stuff of your imagination and putting it into craft. But one of the great parts of this workshop is the way that Clarion has created multiple forms for collective writing and collective imagining. So the great thing, and for people who haven't, aren't experienced with those writer sprints, which Soren is speaking about, is that you set a set time, and it could be anywhere from like an hour to 2 hours, and you might sprint for 30 minutes or you might sprint for an hour. And then after you've gone in, you come back out and then you discuss what you wrote. And it's usually in that process, I found it so helpful because, oh, I'm really stuck on this paragraph because I hate the sentencing, or I'm really struggling through this one fight scene. How do we write this gosh darn it fight scene? Or maybe it's about the themes that you're working on and it feels really heavy and you're not sure how to do it. But the ability to go deep inward and then immediately go out with folks that you trust to be able to talk about that back and forth really helps you push through your blocks you might have in your writing, especially if they're done pretty consistently. And I think the way that, I really didn't understand the structure of the workshop when we first got in, because it was like 3 months of instruction, 3 months of, 2 to 3 months of no instruction, then instruction again. But it's so wise because you get exactly what you need in the beginning of the draft of your novel. And then they're like, okay, go forth. And then you're like, oh my gosh, really? I have to go forth now. What? Where is Summit? Where are the instructors? Wait, but then, we self-organize too, right? And then the grounding isn't coming from external, it's coming from your story itself. And then it just flows, right? It's kind of like a mountain that just keeps getting faster, 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 faster. And then the other thing that's really great for Clarion, and, authors out there might be thinking about this, is what if you're someone who's been really immersed in your story, but you know nothing about the business of writing? Well, that's the other piece that you learn so much about in this workshop. So you learn about agenting and you learn about querying and you learn about, Query Shark. And, if all these things sound like, what is this? Yes, you're totally okay to feel like that. And you learn about it. And you learn about it with people you can actually have trusted conversations with. And people, both authors, agents, and other people along the publishing pipeline come to this workshop to give you their best practices. And then that just helps you feel like you can take this little baby that you've been nursing all the way along into the formal part of publishing. And that's incredible.
I also just wanted to add real quick. I don't want to make it sound like we're completely alone in the summer. We do have scheduled monthly meetings with our instructor that were super helpful for me to stay on track in terms of checking in with Summit every month to stay accountable and also vent what I was struggling with in the draft. Like that was also just huge to have Summit constantly checking in with you and reading your pages and giving feedback was huge all summer.
When we first started the workshop, we were provided with a lot of materials from the Clarion team about how to workshop together effectively. And we created our own community agreements about how to approach like critique and feedback, and like what if we had a disagreement with each other, how to handle that. So if you're like, how do I even do it? Don't worry, there's like a whole orientation for that. And also, you actually, as a group, are going to collectively decide some of those things. Like someone briefly mentioned self-led workshop stuff. We decided as a group that we wanted to do self-led activities. that are optional. You don't have to participate. So if you're the kind of person who needs to disappear into your work for a while, the summer can be a space where you retreat for a while into your shell. You know, if you have, you know, if you're someone who needs feedback and connection with others, there were lots of opportunities to do that over our quiet summer where we didn't have structured workshops, but we decided that as a group.
Can I ask a quick, I'm just going to interject for one quick question. How large is the workshop? How many of you are there?
I think it's
Yeah,
12.
Three groups
then
of
we were
four when we broke up. Yeah, in the summer. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Writers doing
Dozen-ish.
math,
Yeah.
like 4 times 4 times. So we were divided into small groups of 4 people each.
Thank you.